Hi friends, welcome back to So Practical. Today I want to get a practical item made. I had Robert put up a new clothesline for me and I need a clothespin bag. I had my clothespins previously in a basket from the dollar store in Arcane Corso. Ate it. The whole thing. I have no clothespins left because of it. So I'm going to make a bag that I can hang on my line, you know, the old-fashioned clothespin bag, except we're going to do a quilted version and we're going to do it string quilt as you go and make it easy. Alright, so come on up to my cutting table and let's get started. Okay, I have a batting scrap. I want to decide how big I want my bag to be. I know it has to be at least wide enough for my hanger. I like to steal these big pencils from my husband. He leaves them out as fair game. Okay, so when I get to the sides, I want to make it just a tiny bit bigger. About a 1/4 inch. And then this is where you can decide how you want it. Do you want it square? Do you want it round? I'm going to round my edges. Is that going to be big enough? Maybe a little bigger. So a basic shape here. And then I'm going to use this for my pattern. If you want, you can basically cut it out and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to fold it in half. Oops. It's a rough shape, okay? But I'm going to fold it in half at the shoulders. I'm going to cut that a little bit. And then I can then even it out and cut it the same size. And then I realize I'm cutting off too much at the bottom. It doesn't matter. We can fix that when we go into the fabric portion of it. The only thing we need to do though in this, we need to make a hole. So how big do you want your hole? You know, your hand has to be able to fit in it, right? Do you want it square? Do you want it round? I'm probably not demonstrating this very well. Okay, basically make a rough bag shape, make a hole. You can use that for a pot holder. I am going to round that when I put fabric on it. I should have made my hole just a little bit smaller and more toward the top. Leave a good bottom bag because this is where your clothespins are going to be. That was not a very good one. I'm going to work with what I got here. I can always, if I feel it's too small, add on a little section of more batting. Everything's fixable. So if I want it a little longer, I can add on a little bit more batting. Basically, now that we have the batting, we need to get a backing. So pick out a fabric that you have a big chunk of that we can use for the back. I have so much fabric. Holy guacamole. I'm going to use this big flowery fabric. I got a nice big chunk of it, and I always look at it and think, what the heck am I ever going to use this for? Not something I bought. It was an inherited fabric. Okay, make sure that's straight. You can pin it down if you want. I am giving this about 1/4 inch around the outside. You can give it more if you like. That wasn't quite 1/4 inch around that corner. Okay, so that is our backing. And we have pretty much sculptured it right to what this is. Now I've got all these scraps. So what I'm going to do is just start sewing them on. They're all different sizes. This is string quilting, Quilt As You Go. So no nasty comments about it looking sloppy, and you know, I've had super rude comments like that from string quilting projects and using scraps. They're just scraps. I'm not trying to be perfect. Never claimed to be perfect. Alright, so I've just got pieces. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew right on that line and then flip it, because this is a Quilt As You Go, and then I will iron that down and then sew the next line and the next line and the next line, and it's just how it goes. It's not perfect. And I just do the 1/4 inch. Okay, and at this point you can go to the iron and press after every addition if you want. I am not going to do that. I wish I had a roller. I do not. Now remember, this is the front of your bag. I'm just going to cut this guy loose because it's a long one. And put it back in the pile. Alright, and then I have this green one. Oh, I'm trying to think of the name of this fabric line. This is all one fabric line. I just used it in a quilt top, or I'm working on using it. That's the one I'm working on, so I can't remember the name of it. It's so cute and springy. And then I have leftovers from a line called Fruit Cocktail. I am backstitching at start and stop because this is the front of my quilt. Not my quilt, my bag. And then my corner. I think I'm going to use this little cherry. And this is certainly a fun and cute way to use up your scraps, especially your favorite scraps. I love all of these. I'm just going to leave that until I make my final cuts over there. But you can trim as you go if you prefer. Make sure the one you start with is straight. Don't do what I just did. Move this closer to the outside here. And then it's kind of thick, so I'm going to cut it. And here's the thing when you're making these that had upset a subscriber but is so cute, is when you don't cut the strips even. You don't have to. Alright, and then we're going to take care of all the edges, so I'm not super concerned about them. Okay, so I explained this wrong to you. So, and I should have done this before I did this, but not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. We do need to cut this out. This is just the back of the front, and then we'll use this as the backing as well. I don't know what in the world I was thinking. I'm just going to fold this. And then just like that, we have one side done. Now I'm going to kind of switch gears and go from this way. So after I get all these sewed on, I will cut around this, and then we will add the back. In the back, we're not going to quilt. We're just going to quilt the front and leave the back plain. And you see here, that's short, but I do have more. I can just go ahead and I wasn't even thinking. Doing stuff like this is completely fixable for every move you make, every wrong move you make. So just know that. You do not have to be a professional to do something like this. Alright, now look. I have made it bigger and I didn't have to do anything else. So now I can just leave that part there like that. And you can do this in any way you want. So if you decided, hey, you know, it would look better with your fabrics going this way, then you do that. This is basically like making stock. You're using and making something out of nothing. That's how I view it anyway. And that should be my last piece there. This is where my hanger is going to go, so I think I'm just going to fold that down. Some of this off, and since I'm at the top, I'm just going to do a quick top stitch over this fabric. Well, I'm trying to think. I'm going to leave a hole here. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave a hole at the top, and so I'm going to go ahead and top stitch right quick. Okay, so I've top stitched this because when I sew all this together and turn it right side out, the sides will be sewn, but then this would be raw, so I wanted to top stitch that. Even if I sew a little bit up here over my top stitch, it'll be fine. But I think it will look better because this is where my hanger is going to stick out. And I've got little pieces here that are kind of bare. So, easy enough to fix. Okay, and here it is. I have it completely sewn. So what I need to do now is flip it over, move the rest of the scraps out of my way here. Other than the top, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to cut around the back side here and get rid of all the extras very carefully. I need better lighting in here. And these little pieces are going in the trash. I'm not saving them. You ever catch yourself saving way too much stuff, and then by the end you just have so much stuff? You can also just take a pair of scissors and do this, which I'm going to do at the bottom there because I have a curve. Any super big pieces you can keep, the rest just whatever you want to do with them. Maybe you use them for stuffing, I don't know. But this kind of stuff I don't keep. If I decided to keep this too, I'd have even more junk in here than I have now. And now we need to cut the middle out. Trying to look to see where my batting is, because I want to cut along the batting. But we're going to get some bias and go around the middle. Right now it looks like a fancy, comfortable toilet seat. But I'm going to dig some bias out of there and go around this side. And then when we put the back on, we're going to put bias around the whole thing. The other thing you can do, if you want it to be much neater, is this backing. Don't put that on until after this is on. Just do this on your batting, and then you can put that wrong sides or right sides together and sew it around here, and then when it's completely sewed, push it through. You know what I mean? I was going to do that and I thought, I don't know. Why does this look so uneven? That's so weird. Maybe it's just the way I did the fabric, but it just looks so uneven. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so now I'm going to take another piece of this fabric, since it seems to match everything, cut around this, and we'll sew it together. Okay, I'm going to pull the camera off the table, straighten this out, and I'll be back. Will it work? We'll find out. Have I made a bag like this before? No. But I always think I can do whatever I want. Okay, now we want to, no, forgot about this part. I'm just going to quickly tuck this in. I'm not going to worry about it. But you can do the whole binding thing and measure it and okay, I have this sewn around. It's not super even. I tried to get it as even as I could, but unfortunately I used a binding that was way too big for this. It was binding I had left over from a quilt, and it was a little bit too big, so keep that in mind and maybe use some smaller binding, maybe an inch. around here. And then you can decide how much of the binding you want showing around here. This is the backing. I'm going to put binding around the outside. So just right here in the neck area, or the hanger area, I guess I should say. I'm going to just fold it down. And then you can decide if you want to sew right sides together and then through the hole turn them right side. I'm going to put binding around the outside just because I like that look. So I am going to put it together. Again, if you want to just do yours right sides together and then pull it through the hole, you'd be done already. But I got to make things difficult on myself. It's just who I am. Again, this is just for me, and it's a practical item. Doesn't have to be perfect. If I were going to give one away for a wedding gift, I would make for sure I was matching things up better. Okay, now we're going to very carefully put the hanger in. Okay, and now I'm very carefully going to sew up the side. Okay, and there we go. There is our little clothespin holder made with scraps. I think it turned out super cute. I wish I would have made the bias a little smaller and been able to go around the whole thing, but it's okay. It's going to be hanging on my line. Well, probably my laundry room until I need to hang something out. Hopefully you can see it a little bit better. But there it is. It's so, I think it turned out so cute. Yes, I could have done my edges better. I was just kind of in a hurry to whip it out. You get the gist of it. When you make yours, you can be much more picky about your edges and your placement of strips if you want them more even. I like the idea of being sporadic and wonky. To the laundry room she goes. Thanks for hanging out with me while I made my cute little clothespin holder bag. Quilt as you go with string quilting. I think it turned out super cute. I love the fabric and I'm super happy with it. I think it's perfect. Fits my personality. It's a little wonky just like me. Anyway, friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I will see you in the next video.